If you plot the data points of every failed habit you have attempted in the last 5 years, you will likely see a statistical anomaly. The failures do not happen randomly. They cluster aggressively around day 14. This is not a coincidence, and it is certainly not a moral failing on your part. It is a system feature. Biology is built to keep you the same. There is a specific regulatory mechanism in your brain that views your new gym routine or your new diet not as self-improvement, but as a threat to your baseline. Today, we are going to look at the engineering specs of homeostasis. We will analyze why your body fights to restore your old, inefficient settings and how to rewrite the code without tripping the system's security alarm. Before we deconstruct the biology, a quick note on data inputs. This channel analyzes the human mind through the lens of systems engineering. If you want to optimize your hardware and stop running inefficient software loops, you should subscribe. It helps train the algorithm to bring you high signal content. Now, let's look at why you quit. The fundamental error most people make when installing a new habit is assuming that change is linear. We operate under the assumption that if we input X amount of effort today, we get Y result, and that ratio holds steady tomorrow. We view the human body as a blank slate that simply accepts whatever commands we type into it. This is biologically incorrect. Your body is not a blank slate. It is a highly tuned, feedback-controlled machine designed for one specific output: stability. In engineering terms, we call this homeostasis. It is the drive to hold key variables within a very narrow, safe range. Consider the most basic homeostatic system: your body temperature. You have a set point of roughly 37 degrees Celsius. If environmental factors push that variable down, sensors detect the deviation. The system immediately triggers a heating protocol, shivering and vasoconstriction, to pull you back to the set point. If you get too hot, it triggers cooling protocols like sweating. The key here is that the response is automatic and reactive. The system does not care why the temperature changed, it only cares that the parameter has drifted from the baseline. This feedback loop regulates blood pressure, glucose, and pH levels. But modern research shows this mechanism extends far beyond physiology. It governs your behavior, your mood, and your daily routine. Here is the trap. When you suddenly decide to wake up at 5 a.m., or cut out sugar, or write for an hour every day, you are not just doing a new thing. You are manually forcing a system variable away from its established set point. You are the cold wind pushing the temperature down. For the first few days, you can override the sensors with conscious effort, what we call willpower. But eventually, the homeostatic sensors trigger. They detect a deviation from your baseline behavior. And just like your body makes you shiver when you are cold, your brain generates psychological friction to pull you back to your normal. Resistance is not a sign that you are broken. It is the system turning on the AC. Understanding this changes the protocol entirely. When you feel that surge of "this is too hard" or "I don't want to do this" around week 2, you must stop interpreting it as a lack of discipline. It is simply a feedback signal. Your internal thermostat is trying to regulate your behavior back to the energetic set point it has known for years. The objective is not to fight the signal, but to understand that you are attempting to recalibrate a sensitive instrument. You cannot simply smash the dial. You have to adjust the set point slowly enough that the alarm doesn't go off. If you think fighting a thermostat is difficult, wait until you see what happens when you introduce the concept of opponent processes. This is where most self-improvement advice becomes dangerous. Gurus tell you to rely on the excitement of the new me. But biology has a specific countermeasure for excitement. If you rely on that initial dopamine spike to carry you through, you are guaranteeing a crash. Let's look at the physics of the honeymoon phase. We often believe that positive habits should feel good. We expect that if we exercise, the endorphins will sustain us. If we work hard, the results will motivate us. This is the honeymoon myth. In reality, motivation is often just a spike in reward signaling, usually dopamine. But biological systems hate spikes. They view high reward states as a form of instability, just as dangerous as low reward states. The brain seeks a neutral baseline. When you flood the system with the excitement of a new project or a new fitness regime, you are pushing the reward circuitry above its homeostatic line. This mechanism is best explained by opponent process theory, often used in addiction research. The theory states that every strong deviation from neutral triggers a secondary opposing reaction designed to restore balance. If you take a drug that creates euphoria, let's call that process A, the brain immediately spins up process B, which is a dysphoric or painful counterforce to bring you back down. In addiction, this causes tolerance. But this applies to habits too. The initial excitement of week 1 is process A. Your brain, detecting this deviation, activates process B, feelings of fatigue, irritability, and skepticism. The crucial engineering detail is that process B is slow to start, but slow to decay. It lingers. This leads to the week 3 crash. By this point, the novelty of the new habit, process A, has faded. The external rewards haven't kicked in yet. But the counterforce, process B, that background hum of resistance and irritability, is running at full power. Koob describes a similar state in addiction as hedonic homeostatic dysregulation. You are left with all the costs of the new behaviour and none of the initial reward. This is where you say, I'm just not motivated anymore. Correct. You aren't supposed to be. You are in the opponent process TRO. The system is overcorrecting to ensure you don't burn out. The patch for this glitch is anticipation. You must expect the counterforce. When you start a new protocol, do not budget your energy based on how you feel on day 1. Budget for how you will feel on day 14, when the opponent processes are peaking. The strategy is to reduce the scope of the habit right as the resistance spikes. If you plan to run 5 miles a day, and on day 14 you feel heavy and hateful, the correct move isn't to force the 5 miles. It is to run 1 mile to maintain the pattern without triggering a massive stress response. You have to wait out process B. However, there is a quieter, more insidious signal that kills more dreams than exhaustion. It isn't pain, it's boredom. Most of you treat boredom as a lack of interest. You think, if I'm bored, this must not be my passion. This is an interpretation error that costs you decades of progress. Recent papers on cognitive homeostasis suggest boredom is actually an alarm system. And if you know how to read it, it tells you exactly how to adjust your workflow. We are taught to follow our passion. We assume that the right work will keep us eternally engaged. We believe that if the mind wanders or resists the task, we have chosen the wrong path. This creates a cycle of hopping from one new project to another, seeking that initial engagement spike. But the brain does not optimize for passion. It optimizes for an intermediate band of cognitive load. It wants to be engaged, but not strained. It wants to be safe, but not asleep. This creates a specific range, a cognitive set point. Cognitive homeostasis suggests that boredom and effort are regulatory signals, much like hunger. When your cognitive engagement drops below the optimal range, you feel boredom. This is a nudge to explore, to change the channel, to seek novelty. Conversely, when the demands of a new habit rise too high, when the coding becomes too complex or the workout too intense, you feel the sensation of effort. This effort signal is the system's way of telling you to conserve resources and return to a lower energy state. It pushes you toward low uncertainty routines, scrolling, snacking, or watching TV. The trap is that a new habit triggers both alarms at the wrong times. The routine is repetitive, triggering the boredom alarm, but the execution is difficult, triggering the effort alarm. You end up in a worst-case scenario. The task feels hard and boring. Your cognitive thermostat goes haywire. It screams at you to return to your old baseline, where the effort was low and the entertainment was high, like video games or social media. If you interpret these signals as, "I am failing," you quit. You assume the system is broken. But the system is working perfectly. It's trying to save energy. To bypass this, you must rebrand the signals. When you feel the urge to quit because a task is boring or too hard, treat it as data. Acknowledge, my cognitive load is currently exceeding the set point. The solution is to manipulate the variables. If it is too boring, increase the complexity slightly. If it requires too much effort, lower the duration. You are acting as a technician, adjusting the dials to stay within the optimal band. You don't abandon the machine, you tune it. You keep the behaviour, but modulate the intensity until the alarm turns off. We have covered how the system fights you in the short term. But you didn't click on this video to learn how to struggle forever. You want to know how to actually change the baseline so that waking up early or working hard becomes the new path of least resistance. This brings us to the final concept, allostasis. Homeostasis is about staying the same. Allostasis is about how biological systems predict the future and update their settings. This is how you win. The fear with homeostasis is that we are doomed to snap back to our old selves forever, like a rubber band. That is a misunderstanding of the physics. While systems resist acute, sudden change, they are designed to adapt to chronic, sustainable pressure. The body does not want to be inefficient. If you consistently demand a 5 a.m. wake-up time, and you do it for long enough without crashing the system, the body will eventually realize that 5 a.m. is the new normal. It will begin to shift its circadian rhythm, its cortisol release, and its temperature cycle to anticipate that demand. This is allostasis, stability through change. Unlike homeostasis, which reacts to errors, allostasis is predictive. The brain maintains an internal model of your world. If that model predicts you will run 5 miles every morning, it will begin to mobilize glucose and elevate heart rate before you even tie your shoes. This is the goal, to move the behavior from a reactive stressor to a predictive routine. However, this updating process is metabolically expensive. It creates allostatic load. If the load is too high, if you are stressed at work, fighting with your spouse, and dieting all at once, the system runs out of resources to update the model. It defaults to the old, cheaper settings. This explains why habits collapse when life gets busy. You might be 3 weeks into a new routine, feeling good. Then, a work deadline hits. Suddenly, the habit vanishes. Why? Because the allostatic load of the work deadline consumed all your available adaptive energy. Your brain, detecting a resource crisis, cut power to the new habit project and reverted to legacy mode, ordering pizza and skipping the gym. You didn't lose willpower, you ran out of bandwidth. The trap is trying to force a system update when your battery is already at 10%. The protocol for allostasis is strategic patience. You must defend your new habit from outside stress during the integration phase. This means if you are launching a major new business, that is not the month to also quit smoking and start CrossFit. You need to give your regulatory systems enough buffer to handle the cost of updating the set point. Support your physiology, sleep more, Eat enough maintenance calories. You are asking your body to build new infrastructure. You cannot do that while starving it of resources. Treat the habit change as a high-cost biological project. The feeling of resistance you encounter on day 7, day 14, or day 21 is real. It is physical. It is measured in cortisol, dopamine depletion, and opponent processes. But it is not a verdict on your character. It is simply the friction of a system moving from one state of equilibrium to another. If you stop viewing this friction as failure and start viewing it as data, everything changes. You stop panicking when you feel the pushback. You expect it. You account for it in your projections. You realize that the machine is just doing what it was designed to do: keep you safe. If you found this analysis useful, we are currently gathering data on which topics to cover next. I want to build a library of these system-level breakdowns. If you want to be part of that loop, subscribe and leave a comment on which biological limit you want deconstructed next. Dopamine kinetics, sleep pressure, or cognitive load? I read the data. Optimizing your mind is an engineering problem. Treat it like one.